welcome. I want to first of all thank the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute for inviting us back for a second time. I'm Vera Jelinek. I have the honor of being the Divisional Dean of the Center for Global Affairs at NYU. And I must tell you, I've been at NYU for almost 3 decades. It'll be 30 years next January. We organized a workshop on, it was called Emirati Women in the Forefront of Social Change last year. It was an amazing experience for all of us, not just for Emirati women, but for us, the organizers. And we set up some links in between. And because we felt it was such a great success, and because the Abu Dhabi Institute invited us back, we are back to organize a second workshop. And we are at the end of that first day. I want to tell you that I did not do this alone. It takes a lot of effort on both sides, from here and New York. Sylvia Maier, who is on the panel, and May Dabbagh, who's the moderator of the panel, both of whom participated last year, joined Carolyn Kissan, who's in blue in the first row, and me, and we were the conveners of this conference or workshop. You have the trifold, so you know a little bit about what it's all about. What I want to tell you, just a few words, because you want to hear from them and not from me, is perhaps why I stayed at NYU for 30 years, but for this, about the Center for Global Affairs, which is my passion. We offer a graduate program in global affairs, now have, in its 9th year, 350 students. We had the largest entering class last fall. We offer certificate programs for non-matriculates, and we do public events, about 50 a year, on any challenges in global affairs, on all the things that we're all encountering, not just women, but men. And I think that our mission is really to prepare it sounds lofty, but it's real, the next generation of global citizens, men and women, who will be able to navigate the waters, whatever you want to call it, of our interdependent and increasingly complex world. And I think we're doing it. Our alumni are out there in government, in private sector, in education, in civil society, and they are changing the world. So my job is different every day, and I actually have the pleasure of waking up and wanting to go to work. That is not something that everybody can say. We have now completed the first day of the workshop. Some of the participants from last year came back. We've had the most amazing discussions. If the first workshop was a success, I guarantee that this one will be even more successful. In the morning, we looked at, you have the trifold, all of you, so you know what the titles were. Breaking the Glass Ceiling, Challenges and Opportunities. I'm not going to go through the names of all the panelists and the moderators. These are Chatham House rules, so everybody was very confident in speaking out and baring their souls and actually saying what they were thinking. In the afternoon, we continued the conversation, but in response to the wishes of the participants last year, we included men in the conversations. And 3 of them, one of whom we're privileged to have here tonight. We had 3 of them on the panel with 1 woman and May as moderator. And it was again, a different perspective. Equally tantalizing, equally informative. And of course, tonight, we have a continuation of that with May again in charge. And we are looking at negotiating local and global perspectives on advancing women. Again, you have Sylvia, and she will be introduced by May, who's one of the conveners and who's a full-time faculty member at NYU, as is Carolyn. I have no time to teach, so I have a faculty title, but I am a pure bureaucrat and I administer. So the only thing I want to do now is to introduce May, who is currently listed as a Harvard Fellow, but she is soon to become a member, a real member of the NYU family, because she's going to be teaching in the sociology department here at the NYU Abu Dhabi Institute. But we are going to have the pleasure of seeing her in New York for the first semester this fall, which is where I first met her in Greenwich Village. She was formerly the DSG founder and director of gender and public policy programs. She has a PhD from Oxford in experimental psych and a BA in psych from Harvard. She's been published in Arabic and English, featured in about 40 local, regional, and international media outlets, and there's much more that you can Google her and find out more about her. But we have her to thank for assembling tonight's panel, and for what I hope will be a grand finale to the first day of the workshop. We hope that we will be able to come up with projects and further steps that will create a space for us to come back next year to continue the dialogue, and in the interim, to come up with some concrete follow-up, institutional or otherwise, for the year ahead. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to tonight's event.
Thank you so much, Vera, for such a kind introduction. I am very, very honored to be here tonight to welcome you on behalf of the organizers, my colleagues, Sylvia, Carolyn, and Vera, to our public event tonight titled Women's Leadership in the UAE, Negotiating Global and Local Perspectives. I want to start off my introduction of this topic by first noting that this room has a very high percentage of men for a talk on women's leadership. From my experience over the last couple of years, I have to say that the numbers keep going up, which is a very positive trend. So I'm very, very pleased and welcome you all what I hope will be a very constructive dialogue. I really think that there has never been a more interesting time in our part of the world to discuss women and leadership issues. As you know from following the news over the course of the last few years, from countries in the Middle East, ranging from Morocco all the way to Bahrain, that the images that we are seeing of women, the places in which they inhabit, the things that they do, are really changing. On the news, we see that women were partners with men in revolutions. They have been appointed for the first time in historical appointments to the highest decision-making bodies like Majlis al-Shura in Saudi Arabia. They have been appointed as judges, like here in the UAE. They have also, unfortunately, been in situations where much of their autonomy has also been curtailed. Some have been sexually harassed on streets, suffered rape and displacement, and some are now being left out of constitutional amendments in countries that have given those women rights for many, many years before. So really, there's a lot going on in our part of the world. In the panel that we had earlier today, I ended it with a brief blurb, which I had received on my BBM when the Arab Spring took off. It's supposed to be a conversation between two Egyptian men who were discussing their options in the upcoming elections. So the first man says to the second man, you know, if you vote for this party, your mother is going to have to wear the niqab, the face cover. But if you vote for this other party, your mother is going to have to take off her hijab. So the second man thinks about it a little bit and then says, is there any party that I can vote for that's just going to leave my mother alone? And in a way, this story captures something very fundamental about the way that women, their place, what they wear, what they do, their presence in the public has become so much a part of how we assess a political life, economic life, and choices, private and public, that we make as men and women. Having said that, we also notice that there is a much larger debate about women, women's leadership, at the moment mainly emanating from the US. Some of you might have read Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, or heard about it. It's created a huge debate in the US with many articles responding to it, commenting on it. For the first time, we hear from men, maybe even some policymakers, really thinking about these issues and engaging with them in a popular way. They've raised a lot of questions about whether solutions to the leadership gap, to the gender gap in leadership, have to do with fixing the women, so kind of trying to get women to solve the problem through changing their lives or building skills, or whether we really need to change the system, to change the institutional structures that exist. These kind of debates are the issues that we discussed in our workshop today. There were so many interesting points of intersection between what is happening here in the UAE, what is happening elsewhere in the world in terms of the conversation on women's leadership. And what I hope we will be able to do today in our gathering is really discuss the points of intersection between these two, finding that there are many commonalities. There are some differences with implications, but those are differences that maybe can harness opportunities for us as a group. And so what I wanted to do really is briefly introduce each of our speakers tonight. I want to say that I will not do them justice. Their bios are so impressive. These are people who, in their own ways, in their own careers, have actually been creating very interesting spaces for women to engage and to tell their stories of difficulty, but also certainly of success, who have changed narratives about how we should think about women in leadership, and who have engaged with some very difficult questions. After that, we're going to go through, ask each one to kind of briefly comment on the topic of our panel today, and then we'd really like to open it up to the audience. And I hope that this will be a free-flowing discussion between the panelists and members of the audience. The only thing that I ask for is, please, if you can, when you raise your hand and I call on you, please mention your name and the name of your organization. It just helps us keep track of who's saying what. So our first speaker is somebody who really doesn't need an introduction. Nawal Al Hosany is the Director of Sustainability at Masdar. This woman is exceptional on so many levels. It's really difficult to figure out where to start. Not only has she recently been, in 2011, appointed as Director of the Zayed Future Energy Prize, an adjunct professor at the Masdar Institute for Science and Technology, has published in some of the top journals in her field, has sat on a number of really impressive boards, both locally and internationally. To give you a quick example, the Troika Plus of Women Leaders on Gender and Climate Change, the Climate Justice Dialogue Advisory Committee, which is an initiative of the World Research Foundation. She has won a multitude of awards, including the Chevening Fellowship from the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Emirates Businesswoman Award. I could go on, but here's one thing I'm definitely not going to exclude. She is one of the first 2 Emirati women to climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
And can I add one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
The other one was in the panel last year.
Fantastic.
On this panel, which is
clearly, Vera, you're attracting all the right panelists to these events. Just to give you guys an idea, Mount Kilimanjaro is 5,895 meters. So Nawal Al Hosany is a woman who is not afraid of challenging herself and who has fantastic perspectives on sustainability, which I hope she will share with us today. Our second speaker is Sheikh Hussein Al-Banawi. Sheikh Hussein is known for being the chairman and CEO of the industrial group, one of the oldest industrial groups in Saudi Arabia. Sheikh Hussein is engaged in a number of really impressive activities, extensive philanthropic work, both in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. For example, the John Gerthardt Center for Philanthropy and Civic Engagement at the American University in Cairo. He sits on a number of boards, both locally and internationally, and committees such as the World Waqf Foundation of the Islamic Development Bank. Again, I can go on and on about Sheikh Hussein's achievements, but I would really like to mention that he recently wrote a very interesting book called The Unknown Leader, where he reflects on his own leadership experiences, but also theorizes on what leadership in this part of the world means, and how we ought to think about issues such as youth engagement, women's leadership, and new developments in the post-Arab Spring context. Sheikh Hussein is a man who talks about women's leadership quite a bit, but he also walks the talk. And I really hope that today we're going to hear from him about some of his reflections in his writing on women's leadership in this part of the world. Let me also say that Sheikh Hussein, I don't want to say he is unique to this part of the world, but certainly he's, I think, a role model to be emulated by a lot of men that I've worked with or spoken to about women's leadership issues. On my right is a colleague and who I think somebody who's becoming a dear friend, Professor Sylvia Maier. I've had the privilege of meeting her last year in the first workshop. She's somebody who's currently at the Center for Global Affairs, as Vera had introduced her. She's a clinical assistant professor at the center with a PhD in political science from the University of Southern California. I think the most interesting thing about Sylvia is her ability to engage with women's issues globally in a very thoughtful way. She's done work on women in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and more recently here in the UAE. She's working on 2 book manuscripts, so a very busy woman. And she's actually giving a presentation tomorrow at the Dubai School of Government reflecting on women's leadership issues based on her research and her experience. So we are very privileged to have her with us today.
My name is Shamma Al Jaberi. I have almost 12 years experience in both of health administration and public administration. Currently, I'm working for the government of Abu Dhabi. Personally, I went through a lot of experience, and my focus was very much first in the management aspects of health administration, and then I went to focus more on the public administration from governance and legislation point of view. I had the privilege to work in a very unique project that is very related to the decision maker. That's making me, or that's give me the privilege of seeing the things from the top, from micro and macro perspective. I'm very proud that I'm a woman. I'm very proud to be a part of the team, to be here at the panel. And I hope I will be having the chance to share with you my experience or my perspective about leadership and women.
Thank you so much, Shamma.
And it's in the second page.
And I found it. So let me just quickly add that in addition to all of her very interesting work, Shamma is also deeply committed to working with individuals with special needs and is involved in a variety of entrepreneurial activities here in the UAE. So she's really an example of somebody whose contribution to leadership is not only through her work, but through her many other interests. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is pass the mic on to Dr. Nawal and have her reflect on women's leadership in the UAE and perhaps the way in which she thinks that ties to sustainable development.
I would like to say for the UAE, women leadership is not issues. It's not women leadership issues, it's women leadership opportunities. I think we are very blessed here in the UAE of the opportunities that we get from day one. I can't think of another country where the Women Union was established in the same year that the country was established. So in 1971, the UAE was established, and the 1971 Women Union was established. And what that brought with it is equal opportunities from day one. So from day one, women had equal opportunities to education, to health, to employment, everything. So that with it brought opportunities. And I think, you know, we were blessed with this from day one. Now, some of the challenges that we have is maybe, you know, we have some cultural and social challenges that has been, I think as we move on the days, it's changing. But one of the things that we noticed in our sectors, in our industry, that women are generally by themselves, they're not keen to get into this sector. So, you know, with very few exceptions, we go to these conferences, we go to these debates, and very few women are there. And I think that is an issue, that's a problem, because I truly believe that women have social, environmental, and economical responsibility to be part of this industry, because when it comes to climate change and sustainability challenges, we have a great role to play, because maybe not in this region, but in rural and impoverished societies, women are the most impacted with climate change. And with certain skills that women have more than men when it comes to leadership, women have the ability to understand more this challenge, and they can be part of the solution. From our societies, women generally, actually, women have a bigger role to play in addressing challenges related to sustainability, because, you know, most of the time, woman actually is running the house, woman is raising the family, woman is educating the children in the schools. So by being part of the sustainability, understanding what sustainability means and how you can be part of a solution to a very, very big challenge that we are all globally facing it, you, as a woman, you would bring a bigger solution, because your circle of influence is not only your office, your circle of influence is very big. And we at Masdar Institute and everywhere we go, and I have my colleagues here with you, trying always to encourage women to get into this sector. Some think that, you know, getting into the sustainability industry means that we need to be in, you know, maybe science and math and, you know, one of the technical engineering backgrounds, but not necessarily. You can be part of this debate by being a policy specialist. You can be part of the negotiation team. You can be part of the solution regardless of what discipline a woman is. Yes, we need more women in the science and engineering sectors, we do. But if you, as a woman, you don't want to be in this sector, again, you can be part of the solution by being in other sectors. Can I just brag about some of our numbers? Because I like to do that. With Masdar Institute, we are doing very well by attracting women to this industry. I travel a lot, and when you travel a lot, your memory gets affected. So I like to keep my notes here, because I don't want to give you guys wrong numbers. So at Masdar Institute, 35% of our students are women. And as you know, Masdar Institute of Science and Technology, it's a graduate university that is a research-based university, and its focus is on issues and research related to renewable energy and sustainability. So 35% of our student body are women. The Institute Young Future Energy Leaders program, which is mentors and trains future leaders in the fields of advanced energy, we have 45% women. We have young women developing patents and basically going all the way to Antarctica to understand the challenge and the debate. And we have UAE national women actually part of the negotiation team in the G20, Rio Plus 20, and the UNFCCC. So we also, Masdar Institute and Masdar, are part of the Clean Energy Education and Empowerment Women Initiative as part of the Clean Energy Ministerial. So I do believe that, you know, we have a lot of women who took advantage of the opportunities that we had in the UAE, and we have them as students, diplomats, and as, you know, representing their countries and addressing the global challenges for climate change and sustainability internationally. Thank you.
It's really great. Thank you so much. It's fantastic to learn about the role the leadership role that women are playing in this very important area. And I think we're going to definitely have some follow-up questions on that once we get through the rest of the panel. So thank you so much. Sheikh Hussein, we'd love to hear from you, kind of your reflections on women's leadership based on your book and based on your broader experience.
One is, I'll start by saying that the cause to try to make sure that women are much more integral parts of the future of our society does not need legitimacy, really. Does not need legitimacy. What we do need, though, is to go to stage 2, and that's how do we get there. Would our future be better off when we have more and more of talented women to be a part of the shape of that future? The answer is yes. And if we discount that particular and key role, would we have a less bright future? The answer is yes. And I don't think many people would question that. And therefore, what I constantly keep myself asking that question, and I have tried in the book that I've written, somebody else published it, Kogan Page, paid me money. So I'm a paid hired hand, I'm an author, is how do we create an environment in our society, enterprises, to allow for the best and the brightest, the talents, all walks of life of women to aspire to the ranks of leadership. What kind of an enterprise do we create, or enterprises to allow for that talent to develop? And at the same time, what is the role of men to allow for this environment to succeed? I tried in the book to capture something that dawned on me after years of reflection, and that is, well, there is a correlation between how effective men leadership are in a society and the development of women leadership in society. So if you want a barometer of where women leadership is in a society, we take a look at the male leadership in society, because there is a direct correlation in my view. So in order to get the second right, which is create the right environment for women talent to find the opportunities, then I'd say let's make sure that we also create an environment where men leadership is being properly developed. And that's one of the things in the book that I try to address in a word or two. I said something we're faced with all the time when we're faced with women colleagues or counterparts, and we have to deal with them. Something that I thought I answered what many of us try to answer, which is listen with your minds, not with your eyes. If we listen with our mind and not with our eyes, then the element of gender does not become something that we need to even talk about. And that's why I try to capture through the title of the chapter of the book that the mind knows no gender. And the mind really knows no gender. So my answer to that is, to that question, we end where with that question that you posed, Abdullah, that is, we as a society aspiring for a better tomorrow do need the diversity. We badly need the diversity, actually. And if we're happy where we have arrived so far, and many of us aren't happy and they want a better tomorrow, it doesn't mean that we're not, that there's a disgruntlement, but there is a natural inclination for a better tomorrow. It's not about us here in this room or in any other group. It's about our kids, the future. And if that is something that we can agree upon, then we must therefore agree upon the diversity of how that future looks like, and therefore women being central in the decision-making of the shape of that future, then we have a clear common view to how we see the role of women advancement and what shape it should take. And therefore I would encourage, and something that I apply on myself is in leading the group and and trying to advise other colleagues and peers, that if you're trying to look for what kind of shape organizations should take in striking the right balance between men and women, my answer is don't look far. Look for the ratio that God has created for this world, split right in the middle, 50-50. You don't need to look anywhere else. But it doesn't mean you do it overnight. You know, you have to aspire to it. You have to create the right environment. There are tools to be addressed, the structure, the processes, there are all kinds of things. But when you are in a position of leadership, at whatever level, and you happen to be a male, you got to make this central to the right mix and the diversity that you would have in any organization. I can assure you your decision-making would be better. I know in our company, our decision-making process became better, and the ability to deal with challenges and with opportunities took a far different perspective once we started to aspire to that, and we continue to push forward for this. So that's really what I'd like to, I mean, more to read in the book. I hope that you do pick up the book and read it and communicate with me through our website. It's not a marketing angle here, but I mean, that's what it is. Thank you.
And Sheikh Hussein will sign any copy that you buy and bring to this after the end of the panel. So
my pleasure.
I wanted to thank you actually for focusing on the notion that with leadership development for women, we really need to have to also work on changing attitudes, perceptions, values that both men and women hold in society. I think that's a really, really critical point. And that changing institutional cultures plays a really big part in being able to get to a more equitable distribution of men and women in organizations. So thank you so much, Sheikh Hussein. And I'd like to pass on the mic now to Sylvia, where I had originally discussed with her what her contribution is going to be. And we went through a couple of ideas. And then she surprised me right before the panel. And she said that she has a much more provocative contribution to make. So I'm going to pass it on to her.
Well, thank you, May. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this conversation and to serve on the panel with such distinguished leaders and scholars and thinkers. It is truly an honor and a pleasure. We live at a time of incredible opportunities for women. Women have forced doors open that were closed to them just a few years ago. Women are participating in the political sphere, in the economic spheres, socially, economically, culturally, in many ways as equals to men. Yet challenges remain. And I would like to frame my contribution in the form of a challenge. And to keep your attention, I'm going to keep the challenge until the very end of my remarks. The challenge was inspired by 4 observations that I've made throughout our workshop today. The first one was the very first sentence in the keynote address by Dr. Sheikh Al-Maskari. And in the very first sentence, she said, "I am a transnational woman." I would like to rephrase that slightly and say, I'm a global woman. The second inspiration is the key word, the key theme that emerged in our discussions and in our debates today, and that was solidarity and collaboration. In other words, progress and development is impossible without collaboration and without solidarity, which is not always the same thing. Solidarity implies a moral obligation that we have or that we feel towards others, women, men, others who are in need. The third is a very fact-based observation. First, that we are incredibly diverse. In our room today, we had women and men from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia, from the UAE, obviously, from the United States. I'm Austrian myself, so I'm one of the European representatives. We have people from Denmark, from all parts of the world, who hold in their own rights incredible power and in their hands incredible resources in the largest and widest sense of the word. And the fourth basis for my challenge is my own passions in life. So allow me to share with you my 2.5 passions in life. My first passion is backpacking through exotic corners of the world, much to the chagrin of my mother. I'm sure she's amazed that I'm still alive. The second passion in my life is women's rights and women's empowerment, and doing whatever I can, my small share, to contribute to women's empowerment, in particular in Afghanistan. I love Afghanistan. I work and teach in Afghanistan every summer. I have the honor and privilege to teach at the American University in Kabul, and when time permits, I volunteer at my favorite NGO of all time called AFSECO. Allow me the shameless plug. It is a child care and education organization run by a woman, an amazing woman, a leader unparalleled in my view in Afghanistan. The Child Care and Education Organization teaches boys and girls leadership skills, as well as a humanistic curriculum of English, math, physics, chemistry, music, and art. It's an amazing organization. Let me take a step back now, and let's talk about the challenges for a moment. We all know that Afghanistan is facing tremendous challenges. It has been in a constant state of war for the last 30 years. A guess for women. What is the literacy rate of women in Afghanistan? Any guesses? 90%. Say again, please. 90, no. Literacy rate? No. The literacy rate for women in Afghanistan on average is 12%. 12%. For men, it is 23.5. So it's not much better. It's over the age of 14. Under the age of 14, it's a little bit better because for the last 10 years, international troops and international organizations have pushed for increasing children's enrollment in especially primary school. Most education for boys and girls ends after 6 years. For security reasons, for poverty reasons, we will not go into that right now. What is roughly the infant mortality rate in Afghanistan? It's incredibly high. According to the United Nations, 121 out of every 1,000 infants die before they reach the age of 2. The maternal mortality rate is equally woeful. It is now number 9 in the world. It's 460 women out of 100,000. In the United States, it's about 9 out of 100,000, just to give you an idea. And a final statistic, I won't quiz you afterwards, so you don't have to write this down. What is the percentage, according to the United Nations, of women in Afghanistan who experience in some form a form of gender-based violence? It could be domestic violence, it could be other forms. It's very high indeed. It's 87%. 87%. Now, in Afghanistan, I had the honor of working with a remarkable range of women, from the very, very young 6-year-olds who I teach English to interviews that I was permitted to do with one of the women I admire most in the entire world. Her name is Dr. Sima Samar. Dr. Sima Samar is the former Minister of Women's Affairs in Afghanistan, and she is now the president, the director, the head of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. She's also the recipient of the Alternative Nobel Prize. She's an absolutely fantastic woman. One quote that I want to share with you is from one of my 17-year-old students at AFSECO. Her name is Pashtana. She gave me permission to share it with you. Pashtana is an orphan, and she has been in the orphanage for roughly the last 7 years. And she has high hopes. She's fluent in English. She is full of spunk and full of fierceness. She's the co-captain of the AFSECO girls soccer team. And the AFSECO girls soccer team had, in June of last year, a friendly match, as we call it, with the Afghan national women's soccer team. So there is an Afghan national women's soccer team. And the girls were fierce enough to get to, I always confused it in English, they almost won. Well, they lost 0-5, but you know, it was very close, it wasn't bad. So Pashtana is absolutely fierce on the soccer field. And then when I spoke with her, she and I were charged with building up the Afsiku library. So we were schlepping around 700 books and shelving them and cataloging them and so on. So we spent a lot of time together. And I just asked her, so what are your hopes and dreams for the future? And Pashtana said, I dream, but I fear to dream. And that really almost tore my heart apart. I'm not a mother, I'm not married, but I hugged her and I just wanted to say, what can I do? And she said, there's nothing you can do. I'm going to stay in my country, I'm going to study law, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can. Now let's get to the challenge. Let's get to the point. I'm academic, I like to talk. But what I wanted to share with you is the incredible hope and the incredible potential in countries such as Afghanistan among young girls who will be leaders in their own way. Will she become president? Maybe. I do not know. Will she become a leader of her little adopted siblings in the orphanage? Most decidedly. Will she become a leader in her community, in her family? I have absolutely no doubt that this woman who is kicking the soccer ball into the goal like there is no tomorrow, that she will be fierce and feisty and she will die trying if necessary. And I hope it won't come to that. But what I would like the challenge to be about is the following. We talk about girls like Pashtana. We talk about women like Sima Samar. We talk about women like Wajma Frog, for instance, or Manija Nadri, or Malalai Joya, all Afghan women leaders. Or, and I just had a conversation with Vera about this right before, at the beginning of the panel, an incredible man, Dr. Mukwege, who runs the Panzi Clinic in the Eastern Congo, who, through surgery, heals women, and I try to be very delicate, who have been horribly violated in the conflict. You all know, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, sexual assaults on women are widespread, and they're committed with the most brutality imaginable. And Dr. Mukwege is trying to heal and repair these women physically. Where does this lead us? And the challenge is now the following. I've given you a snapshot of, a very small snapshot of 2 or 3 individuals who are incredibly remarkable, who are working in incredible challenges. I challenge and I ask every person in this room, every single person in this room, to contribute, to do one thing, awareness raising, contribute financially, make a phone call to support a particular cause. Do one thing that can amplify the girl effect, that can support male and females, men and women who are trying to overcome oppression and are trying to overcome disadvantagement, who are working making life a better place, making the world a better place for children, for women, and for men. So one thing, please do one thing. If you take one thing away from this panel tonight, please do one thing. We can all do one thing. We have incredible resources at our disposal. We are all leaders in our own way. We have resources that others do not have. So we talked about women's leadership in the UAE and what we can do to self-empower and what men can contribute in terms of alliance building. I would ask us now, let's use our power and our leadership to help those who are trying to become leaders outside the UAE. And a very smart person, this is the last sentence I'm going to say, a very smart person said the following: nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Sylvia, for that very passionate call for action. I have to say that I was really touched by what you spoke about on so many levels. One of them being that you're really challenging, actually, the most basic assumption that is quite widespread about the local-global dichotomy, in the sense that often when people have this conversation about local-global, not only in the UAE, but certainly in this part of the world, there's this kind of assumption that the local is always on the receiving end of the global. And certainly in terms of leadership development practices, let's try to figure out what best practices out there and just copy-paste it here. So if it's mentorship, we bring a mentorship program. If it's, you know, learning a particular skill, we bring the best trainers, and we just, and what I love about what Cynthia is saying is that, in fact, there is something very interesting that can happen local to global, which can really shift some of these dynamics. I think we'll have a little bit more time, maybe in terms of our discussion with the audience, to kind of delve into this notion of transnational networks and what we mean by solidarity in that context. And I think now we'd like to bring it back a little closer to home with Shamma and hear from her, yeah, a little bit about her views in terms of women's leadership here in the UAE.
Thank you, May. Just wanted to start from the point when you said global challenge. You know, I think the leadership and women is actually a global issue. And we start to think that it's an issue, but we become like, we believe that it's a challenge and it's a problem, that we have to break it and blah, blah, blah. And what I wanted to emphasize about the global perspective in leadership and women, that yes, the challenge could be everywhere the same, but the solution should be customized to the local culture. Never ever copy paste whatever a solution you know, a practice in Afghanistan or India or US or England, because that's not going to work in UAE. UAE have its own unique culture. We are even different than, by experience, than Bahraini culture, than Saudi culture, by Kuwaiti culture, because each one of us, we grow in a different rate. UAE have, you know, they reach this stage after 30 years. Kuwait, they may take longer or shorter. I don't know. I'm not here to emphasize on the time, But what I'm trying to say that the challenges are the same, but the solution should be different than any other way. We could learn. We could take the experience. We can capture the experience in UK, in US, and in Asia, but we have to customize our own solution. And I think that's the key mistake that we have been doing for the last 30 years. We just copy paste. We bring the best consultancy firms. We pay millions, and we just do whatever programs or initiative that we think or they think that it's best for us. So we need to customize our solution, which is exactly fit to us. What I wanted to also emphasize about the challenge, and I personally believe that we should be aware about the challenge, and we should be aware about the causes of the challenge. And I would like to start with the workplace. In the workplace, I think the first challenge, number one, that we believe so much that there is a ceiling. Okay, and actually, even if we don't believe it, we have been grabbed to that trap by the people around us. And that's including men and women, actually. Because any lady who starts her career, the first thing she starts to think about it, oh my God, I have a colleague who is a man, he is going to be my manager in a short time, and blah, blah, blah. So it's the personal beliefs, you know, that I have a ceiling, I have a limitation. So we need to break that, and we need to stop thinking about that. And if we have that kind of thoughts, we should start to deny it. There is a challenge that we should all aware about it. We as a woman, what we did exactly to take away or even to eliminate that the problem, or to enable the woman to be a leader. Which is interesting, because I work in the performance management long enough, and I have been looking to the indicators. And what's very interesting, that most of the women actually, they are working in the HR, human resources. And the most of the position or post or leader positions in human development or human resources management are led by women. Then what did we did exactly to enable the other women to be in leadership positions? Nothing. We go to work, we do the procedure, administration process, and that's it. So there is a problem also in ourselves. It's not only in the man or in the leader or whoever. There is something we have to start with ourselves. So we start with ourselves, then we start with what we have to do with the others. And when I'm trying to say here, I'm not trying to say the HR managers should really take care of the woman as a special needs. They are not a special needs, you know? We need to start to think that I really prefer to have in my team a lady and a gentleman who work hard and with a high performer. You know, so there is nothing really like a special policy for a woman. Let's go back to the college. Why, when we ever go to the college, we start to think about what kind of specialization that it could give me a good, prestigious job as a lady? You know, I'm talking about a UAE culture. I'm not talking about UK and US, and I'm talking about it from a local perspective. And let's go back to home. Who's raising children? Women. And that all the gentlemen, one day, they were young and they were kids. So if they went out of home with the thinking that women are less capable than women, then there is something wrong with the homes. So we have to start with that root cause. And so what I'm trying to say here, you know, that we as a woman, as a part of the problem, actually, we created that problem because we like drama by ourselves. So that's all what I can say.
Thanks, Shamma. So actually, I mean, if I have to say that if I read Shamma's observations, I would actually argue that it's also a call to action. I mean, the implications of what you're saying, especially in terms of HR, is that what is really needed is institutional reform, a different kind of workplace structure that can accommodate women, not as a category, but along with men under the same kind of legal or policy framework that enables for a better and more productive work environment for both men and women. And the other part of your intervention, which I really liked, is one about internalized narratives and sort of how they're built slowly over time, starting from the home, but certainly through school, how they grow, until you get to the point where these kind of narratives that hold us back as women are so much a part of who we are that they really limit our choices. And I just want to point out that this is not something, and I don't think you've argued that, but that's definitely not something that's limited to UAE in any way. One of the funny sort of short anecdotes in the Sandberg's Lean-In book is, and she quotes from another book called Cinderella Ate My Daughter. And she talks about what happens when a 5-year-old girl comes to her mother and is distraught. She's very upset. And the mother asks her why, and she said, well, she has a crush on a little boy with her in preschool, but she just found out that they both want to be astronauts. So the mother said, well, what's the problem with that? And she said, well, Mom, if we're both in space, who's going to take care of the kids? So even at that young age, her sort of biggest fear is not how difficult space travel is going to be, but dependable childcare. And so, you know, this was one of the stories in the book that sort of really captured my attention because I instinctively knew that this is exactly what we do when we create these narratives that translate themselves into embedded ways of thinking and restricting our choices in the future. Now, this is not to say that these are not genuine concern. Dependable childcare, affordable childcare, high-quality childcare is still an issue in almost all countries, an issue that different countries have grappled with in different ways. So I don't want to in any way belittle that concern, but I do want to say that panelists, people like our panelists today, are contributing to creating new narratives about women's leadership, either through their own actions, through their perseverance in their careers, through their activism and their research, or through their writing, are enabling us to think about new ways of talking about women's leadership issues in ways that are constructive. And so with that, I'd like to open it up to the audience to hear your reflections, your questions.
International Businesswomen Group was created to empower women. I did start a long time back, and it took me 10 years to break the glass ceiling and reach the managerial level because I was a woman. But nowadays, thanks God, you know, it's much better. My question, why do we have less and less women in the boardroom despite the different opportunities open? And the question is open to all of you.
So the question is about why the percentage of women in boardrooms is still appalling. And I'm assuming you're referring to this worldwide, right?
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Can I
Please.
It is worldwide. And I think one of the things that, unfortunately, and no offense to any men, but men think that they were born ready for boards. We women think that we need training and we need to be prepared, and men think that as well. So one of the things that now we face, because I know, as you know, last a few months ago, the UAE actually on a federal level, there is now a decree that every board of every company owned by the government has to have at least one woman on the board. But I know that a lot of people are struggling to find capable women to sit on boards, knowing that many men we know at very young age, like in their 20s, are on many boards, and that did not stop any man from having boards. So I think what we need to do on an action, I think, and that's open for New York University and all the universities and Masdar Institute, I think we need to create a pipeline of women who are ready to be on boards by training and by providing them with some tools. And there, then you will have this kind of talent or this database of especially I'm talking about the local market here, where you have a lot of educated women. And somebody told me that maybe we have one of the highest percentage of women in the UAE with PhDs or with high education. So there are already the educational background and the talent and the confidence, but maybe we need to equip them with certain tools on, especially in the financial sector and in the governance sector. And I think that could solve this issue. But I agree, it is a global issue. It's not specific to the region here. But I think as we address it, we need to maybe create some programs to equip women with the right tools, and then nobody will have any excuse that women are not ready yet. They're trained.
I'd like a comment on this. One is we went through that experience in our group, not because of the law. We didn't think that we need to wait for laws to bring the right talent at the board. But it does start with leadership and ends with leadership. And that's why even when we talk about talent and the point rightly said earlier that plenty of women talent, and why didn't HR, they were denominated by women, and why weren't we hiring more women in organization? But I do believe it, you see, that by itself answers the question. It does require leadership to say, I need diversity. And by diversity, I will improve the decision-making process of whatever we address. And therefore, here, it starts with leadership to say, I want a diversified board. In our company, there was something that I raised with my colleagues. We need the right representation at the board. We need women leadership at board. Then the question came in, what are the criteria? So they looked at me and said, you're the chairman, what are the criteria? I said, I'll come back to you. But then I came back and said, what are the criteria? You don't need a certain major to be an effective board member. I've served on boards, and many of you have. Board members about the quality of deliberation. Board members need to know the businesses that you're in, the board, that you're serving on that board. But from a bird's eye view, what you do need, however, is intellect. What you do need is the ability to ask the hard questions. What you do need is the capacity to question assumptions. And the plenty of women talent out there to fill that seat, I can assure you that. But it does require that desire and that tenacity at the level of whoever in that position to say, I need diversity at the board. And we were fortunate enough through search in our company and I met all kind of candidates, finally to be blessed to have Dr. May on our board. But I didn't know Dr. May before at all. That's why not only we say we appointed the first board member, this goes back 5-6 years now, but the first independent board member through search, an honest search of trying to find the right talent. So members like Dr. May can hold us as management accountable. So there is really no special training, I can assure you that, but you need to be smart. I can tell you that, that's a fact, and you need to have the capacity, maybe I'll close with that, to have the character to deliberate. You can't be defensive and be a good board member. You can't be somebody who doesn't have the capacity to listen and to give and take and look for new angles and constantly keep an eye on the bigger issues, not to immerse yourself with details because somebody else is paid to do that in an organization. So I would close at that, and there is hope out there. We just need to make that decision to go and get them.
Thank you, Sheikh. Did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would like to ask, who doesn't know what abaya mean here? It's the black, right? The black dress that we usually wear. I would like to share the same story that we discussed today in the workshop. I was working or reading in a case which is very much related to a board governance. And in almost every page of it, they were talking about the governance of the board and what they do and blah, blah, blah. And the sentence that have been repeated so many times that تحت عباءة المجلس مجلس الإدارة. In English, underneath the abaya of the board, you know. And it stopped me really and that drew a smile on my face and I start to laugh. Actually, there is no woman in the board. How could there is abaya? That's good, you know? So that means the people who is in the board actually believe that, you know, they need a woman somehow, even if it is only her abaya in the board. So what I'm trying to say that is, you know, I would like to start with whatever, you know, it's mentioned about. In boards, we need leadership, and we need a strategic thinking, and we need a visionary people. So there is two ways to reach to the board, okay? It's either to start from bottom to up, or from up to up, which is so much difficult even for a gentleman. So what I'm trying to say, as a female, I know that the majority of the female usually we focus very much on the details and the procedure. So what I'm trying to say here, a very short advice, pick up your head and look ahead and try to think strategically and why exactly you're doing that kind of details. So you will be capable enough to be appointed as a board member. So again, I emphasize on starting on myself rather than trying to find why I'm not there in the board.
There is one question there.
I think we have one more comment and then we'll take the next question.
I would just add one more point to what my colleagues and co-panelists have said, and I'm building on Shamma's contribution at the beginning of our panel discussion, and that is the question of self-confidence. That one thing that only we as women can do and achieve is build our own self-confidence so that we're confident putting our names forward and say, I would like to serve. Can you propose or can you put my name forward? Can you nominate me to serve on the board? I have the capacity, I have the intellect, I have the talent to serve. And a second point that is sometimes, I think, its importance not recognized yet, and that is, as women, we need to build alliances with men, such as you, for instance, Sheikh Hussein, who is very supportive of women's advancement. In other words, we need to build our own women's network, but also we need to build strategic alliances with those who can support and advance our cause, if we cannot do it on our own, even though we can most of the time.
Hello, my name is Nicole, and I'm a third-year student at NYUAD Abu Dhabi. I'm part of the Women's Leadership Network, which is a club that just started this year at the university. And one of the questions I want to ask Shamma, actually, as you're working in policy and in the government, is what are the best practices you've seen with empowering women in the UAE? I know we've thought about starting a mentorship program where you bring women who are leaders in their fields and put them together with university students all around the Emirates. Is that something that you've seen that has worked, or what do you see as the future for women's empowerment in business, in government, in leadership in the UAE?
Actually, I will be, I'm not going to be honest if I'm going to say that there is a single practice that we have to follow, all of us, because it's very much depends on the people themselves, you know. not everything could work with me. So it's very much about how can I work with you closely to develop your leadership skills, you know. The practice here in UAE, because it's a very unique culture, I think we need two kinds of practice here, from a legal practice and also from a practice that could be initiated by the people themselves. The legal practice is we already done with that, because our leadership, they support very much women, and that's why we have a woman in minister. We have women in even CEO of one of the, for some of the very critical entity. So we have to start with ourselves, you know, as a practice, how can we take care of the students in the university? Then the first one is by having the right mentor. And not everyone in a very executive level, they are a good mentor. Some of those people already, actually, they reach that level by, again, if I can't say that, by wasta, or by, we all know that, or could be even, you know, and that it's apply on women and gentlemen, you know. So be very much picky on who is my mentor to follow. Second point of view, always choose the mentor that who ever did something, an achievement, and not having the privilege of being in a very relaxed environment to be a leader. You know, I think the challenge is the one who create the right leader. That's apply on women and men. So the practice could really work for UAE here in Abu Dhabi or UAE, and it's the right mentor. Secondly, we work more from legislation point of view, and I think that it's already taken care of it. I'm sure 100%. And the third point is about self-confidence. We are really not, you know, we have to build that self-confidence more and more, and that cannot be built by a mentor, cannot be built by a lectures in university, cannot even built by even a policy or a legal. So that's the start point.
I'm Dr. Mariam Al-Mazrou'i, the Deputy CEO for Corniche Hospital. It's a maternity hospital. I'm very proud to see the panel here and with the two of our stars in Abu Dhabi, Shamma and Dr. Nawal. I would like personally to commend Masdar achievements. They did a great job, and not only developing the technical skills in women and men, but also developing the leadership skills to create, you know, new generation who are capable technically and managerial to achieve the next, you know, targets for Abu Dhabi on renewable energy. This is one of the things that Abu Dhabi focuses on. I don't know how much, Dr. Nawal, this translated to the other sectors, you know, this entrepreneurial thinking of developing the next generation, how much we are doing in the other sectors. Did you share your experience with the healthcare sector, with the education, and the rest of the sectors? Do you get this chance actually to share the experience?
Thank you for the nice compliments. We are very proud of Masdar's achievements regionally and internationally, and I think and that's basically stems from the UAE's leadership and all the trust that we received from the government. There is a lot of collaboration Masdar is having with different government entity and private entities, and from the academic point of view, we have partnership with many universities. I think Dr. Bahja among the audience can speak more about what Masdar Institute is doing with the collaboration with other entities. But what we do in Masdar on a corporate level, we do have MOUs in collaboration with a lot of government entities. Engaging with the youth is a big priority for us. In Masdar, we receive students from all levels in schooling, from primary to secondary school to high schools to even universities as interns. So we have a team dedicated to engage with the youth and having the students at the Masdar city and take them in a tour of Masdar city and engage with them on the importance of sustainability and the importance of their role in taking leadership on sustainability and being part of the sector. Again, at the World Future Energy Summit, we have days that are dedicated for the youth and for the schools and getting them and engaging them with us in different levels, either through competitions or just visiting and going around. We encourage all our stakeholders and our strategic partners from international corporates to have programs dedicated to the youth and engage with the young future energy leaders. Are actually not Masdar staff, they are staff and future leaders from different sectors, from different companies in the UAE and internationally. And again, we like to give them the opportunity to have programs in the UAE and with international entities. So there is a lot of work that's happening, and we're very proud that we are one of those entities that encourage this collaboration.
Hi, my name is Habib. I teach at Zayed University, which is predominantly a women's university. We have male students. Now, I have a macro point and a micro question. The macro point is, I tell you, it's just a matter of time, because I teach Emirati women, and they are the future leaders of the country. I know the quality. I know the steel inside of this woman. The micro point is that I have one student. She represents the UAE in judo. So she went to Bangkok and she missed classes. She came back and she said, I'm going to give up judo. I said, look, we have thousands of students. You are one of them. But you are the only one judoka. Don't give up on this. Now, I want your advice on how a man can be a better mentor for a young leader. Thank you.
Okay, that's a great question. So if I've understood your question, I want to just agree with that first part and hope certainly that it's true that it is a matter of time. The second part of your question was sort of really about the role that men can play as mentors to young women, and maybe reflecting on experiences or thoughts about how to either increase this or increase the quality of it. Would any of our speakers like to?
I can have a start at it. I don't think mentorship is gender specific. I think mentorship is about finding the right skill that you would like to improve in yourself as a mentee and identifying who does it best and who can be your guide and your mentor in that. And that's why, for example, just one example, I'm engaged in 2 mentorship programs. One of them is in Masdar, where we have this mentorship program for the employees. So your mentee choose you. Doesn't matter. You don't decide who is your mentee. Your mentee choose who is going to be their mentor. And again, it's gender neutral. You don't decide who is your mentor depending on the gender. The other platform is I'm engaged in Women in Technology, and this is like an international mentorship program where you have using technology to become an advisor or a mentor to somebody. And again, it's gender neutral, and I do believe it's gender neutral because the skills that you need as an individual, it's as you mentioned, when you close your eyes, your mind is gender neutral because it's not about gender. It's about the right skills, the right qualities that you would like to engage and to learn and to improve in yourself.
Thank you.
Actually, I totally agree with Dr. Nawal that mentor should not be really very much linked to any kind of gender. But as a woman, if we're going to start to think that, yes, we do have a challenge and we need a mentor, that's actually an excellent idea of trying to find the right gentleman to be my mentor, because he's going to be totally out of, out of my emotional box and out of my way of thinking, and he's going to advise me how to do it as a man, if that's going to be the challenge for me in my career.
I have to disagree. You never try to do it as a man. That is not the way to do it. That is definitely not the way to do it. I think we are all skilled in our way of doing things. And again, we have some of what used to be perceived as weakness in women is actually a very strength in a good leader, which is empathy and being a good listener and being a patient person. And I think that is a strength that women have, and now that's being taught in leadership courses. How you become a good leader is to have an empathy and to have this ability to sympathize and to be a good listener.
I mean, one thing is for sure, as we address the topic of women advancement, it goes hand in hand that looking out for the right mentors to help you along the way becomes essential. I mean, it will help you avoid mistakes that can be easily avoided. I've heard somebody just shared with me a story the other day. Said you don't need to be smart, but sometimes you just need to imitate the right people. But you don't need to be stuck with one mentor. You have a choice to have more than one. You need to define what you want from a mentor. This is not somebody that tells you, you know, I failed in this in that particular thing, so don't do it. You'd need somebody to say, I failed, but let me share with you my mistakes, and you should do it. It's just a completely different, that's really what good mentors is all about. It's about tough love, if you will. There aren't many around. I would advise anyone that is aspiring to the ranks of leadership to pick your mentors well. They will push you out of your comfort zone. If they don't, they're not mentoring you right. And you will have tears once in a while. But that's what mentorship is all about. Good luck.
My name is Belena Yestaran, and I'm here with my husband, who's an architect, so I qualify as an expat woman. And my question is about expat women. And I hope that expat women are part of the conversation about development of leadership in women in the UAE. And I would like to get your input on how UAE women and expat women can reach out to each other to develop women leadership in the UAE.
That's an excellent question.
Does somebody want to start? Or?
Well, you will hardly find any organization in the UAE that is only UAE women or only expat women, because that is, you know, that cuts across. My first mentor when I came back to the UAE was somebody senior, was one of our consultants, and she was a senior CEO of the company that's working with us. And I, you know, although I was very senior, but I knew I needed certain skills that I wasn't moving from the government to the private sector. I wanted these skills, and I asked her to be my mentor. So I don't think there is race boundaries as gender boundaries when it comes to mentorship. And I think most of our HR departments, they focus on developing the people, you know, irrelevant of their background or their nationality, because most of our entities and companies are result-oriented. And for us to be results-oriented and achieve, you know, our targets, we need to work and improve our employees regardless of where they are from. Yes, there are some specific focus on the Emiratization, and there is focus on developing the skills of the UAE nationals, and I think that's a normal thing. But leadership programs and training programs are open to all, to everybody who's in the organization. And I think that cuts across every entity in the UAE. I haven't seen yet an entity that only trains UAE nationals or only have a program that discriminates their employees, because that is definitely not the case.
Thank you. I'm Nancy Fimble, and I teach in the higher college. I don't teach. I'm an administrator in the higher colleges of technology. I am very encouraged by what I've heard from the panelists tonight, and I thank you for your optimism. I think you're exactly right that the future of this country is in wonderful hands. I worry a bit about the fact that some of the young ladies that we educate in the higher colleges of technology are given permission to go to college, but they're not given permission to work afterwards. Are you suggesting that the background to the future in the UAE will become less restrictive to these young women, that changes are afoot in the society in a broader way that will enable these young women to become the leaders that they are certainly capable of becoming?
I mean, I'm going to take a quick stab at that, and then I'm going to pass it to the rest of the panelists and come to a close. Absolutely. There is no question about it. I've been in the UAE now for 6 years, and in my work at the Dubai School of Government, I've hired interns, I've hired researchers, I have seen in a very brief period of time the ways in which the experiences of some women quickly, like you see the spillover effect to other women. Once it's established that there is something that is really valuable about this kind of experience, whether it's work or it's something else, I think you find that it's something that people engage with. I remember the first time I spoke at Zayed University about the value of a very low-paid internship doing research for us compared to, you know, we're competing with like banks and whatever, why it really mattered and why, you know, young female students would get something really tangible out of an internship working on gender research. You know, I had a queue of young students coming to speak to me later about what are the opportunities, what can we do, even if we are not able to get an internship, what are the ways in which I can engage with some of those questions. I was really, really struck, not only by their passion, but their interest. And again, I mean, this is just anecdotal reflections on what I've seen, but I really think, you know, kind of like Dr. Habib, it really is a matter of time. And when you look at the history of the UAE, which is, you know, the breakneck speed by which things happen, the amazing opportunities that are made available, but also similarly, the complicated ways in which they come about, it's actually really impressive. So that's my personal opinion. I don't know if somebody else from the panel would like to take this or add anything.
I can add one thing, but I'm going to speak about not the young generation who are out of school, but actually the older generation, like old women that has been grandmothers who now started to work thanks to, you know, Khalifa Fund and Soga initiative, who has been empowering and working with women in the Western region and getting them to be reconnected back with the handcrafts and things that they used to do, and now they stopped doing because they are not building tents anymore. But, you know, having this opportunity and having the education and getting them to be aware of the importance of becoming an independent even in her own house. So women now have an opportunity, especially those with some social barriers, that have an opportunity to do something within their houses, and they became their own, you know, and I'm not going to talk about it because I know that Leila is going to talk about it tomorrow in the lecture that is being held by Sheikh Salama Foundation. I encourage everybody to go because she is going to talk a lot about them. And it's amazing how you see this changing. Before that, a lot of women didn't even, and I'm talking about older women with the average age, I think, was 60 years old when Leila started. And now the average age has becoming in the 30s, I think. So you see this pride in working and the change of perspective, instead of waiting for the government support to be able to, for herself, to contribute and generate income for herself. And the passion about it is growing and expanding across not only the Western region, but everywhere. So I agree, it's changing, and the perception of the society of entrepreneurship and the belief that the women now are having in themselves and their skills and not waiting to have to find a job at the government or to get a very highly paid job, but creating opportunities for themselves is happening. And for that, there are no barriers. Even with the social barriers where you know, in some cases, families doesn't allow them to work, there are a lot of women now finding ways to work within their own homes.
I would make a comment, though. I mean, to make a choice to be a young mom is a choice that, you know, women are blessed to be a part of this. And we, a bunch of men, don't need to even worry about that. In that it's something that it's just the way it's a God's thing. But I would say the following: if you do have a passion, even if you made that choice, continue to pursue that passion. Work and self-esteem are two sides of the same coin. The kids will grow. Their needs changes. So don't disconnect completely. Continue to pursue whatever makes you tick. You can pick it up later when the kids have, you know, left the nest. But my advice is always keep that connection, pursue that whatever work aspirations, even in doses. It doesn't have to be full-time. These are choices everyone can make, and every individual makes them differently. But I would say one option, the line in the sand, don't disconnect completely. You'd be surprised how valuable it is when the kids are grown and you realize to what extent self-esteem and self-fulfillment was a product of that work that you brought back home.
And on that note, I think we'll really bring this panel to an end. And I just want to share with you a quote from our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Sheikh al-Maskari, who told us that, reflecting on her own life, that when one looks back at a marriage, there might have been good days, there might have been bad days. When one reflects on their career, there might have been some days which were really tough, insurmountable problems, but others that were pretty good. And what really matters in the end is one's legacy. One's ability to kind of look back and tell a story about what they've done, where they've come from. And then those little things along the way can be little in the big picture. But the key is that when one comes across challenges, to really be a part of the solution, to really take the initiative to change the context in which we are, to challenge boundaries, to engage with narratives so that we're telling a different story about the lives that we lead. And the hope is that our panel today was perhaps a very small beginning in a larger conversation which all of us will engage in the future. Thank you so much.